Hi, my name is Suryanarayana. I'm working as a full stack trainer in Institute of Aeronautical Engineering College, Dundigal. I'm from the Skill Development Department. Today's topic is how to implement loops in core Java. So loops and conditions, these two comes under control structures topic. So conditions are already completed. If, switch, ternary, they comes under conditions. And coming to the loops, in loops we are having four varieties of loops: for loop, for each loop, while loop, and do while loop. So altogether we are having four types of loops. Using these loops, and why we use loops in the programming is because the purpose of loop is to repeat the same or similar code for a number of times. So for example, if you want to repeatedly accept different student marks and wants to calculate the total marks, grade, pass or fail percentages, if you want to calculate for 10 or 15 or 20 students, so you need to take 6 subjects of student marks, sum them, divided by 6, average will come. If average is between so and so and so, so the student belongs to A plus grade, A grade, B plus grade, B grade, C plus grade, C grade, fail, something like that. We can calculate. In order to perform the sum of marks, calculating the average and grade, would take around 10 to 15 lines of code. The same 10 to 15 lines of code, the logic, if you want to execute for a many number of times, for 10, 15 students or 20 students or 50 or 100 students, what we need to do is, we need iterations, we need loops. So that is what I have explained there. Purpose of loop is to repeat the same or similar code for a number of times. The number of times may be classified as, so okay, we want to repeatedly execute some group of statements in the program. But in that loops also, we are having 3 different types of loops: definite loops, indefinite loops, infinite loops. The name clearly indicates definite loop, indefinite loop, infinite loop. Except infinite loop, definite loop and indefinite loops will use more frequently in the program. Infinite loop also will use, but in a very rare occasions, like especially when we do network programming, web server implementation or socket programming. We want to execute the server to accept infinite number of client requests. So there is no maximum limit that a server should process only 10 or 15 clients. Once the server starts, the server should start accepting infinite number of client requests. The server should process infinite number of client requests. In such cases, we use infinite loop. But in the regular programming, we use finite loops and indefinite loops. Definite loop. The name clearly indicates definite loop. It will iterate for a particular number of times, 1 to 10 times or 1 to 20 times or 1 to 30 times. Definite loop, definite number of iterations, the fixed number of iterations. We will only tell that your loop, you please iterate for 10 times or 20 times or 30 times, like that. That is definite loop. Indefinite loop is not an infinite loop. Indefinite loop is there is a definite position existent. There is a definite number of iterations exist in indefinite loop. But the number of times the iteration, that we cannot control, like 5 times or 10 times or 15 times or 20 times. It depends on as much amount of the data we get from an array, we get from some XML document, we get from some JSON document, we get from the database, we get from the network, we get from the socket. As much amount of data comes in order to read the data. So the data we cannot determine. So as much data comes, that those many number of times we want to iterate loop and we want to retrieve the data. In that case, we'll go for indefinite loops. So the best example for finite loop. We'll implement finite loop, indefinite loop and infinite loop, 3 types of loops using for loop, for each loop, while loop and do while loop. So here I made one separate presentation on how to implement these loops, how to implement indefinite loop, and indefinite loop, infinite loop, and finite loops using for loop. For loop is one of the most frequently used, iteration control structure. Iteration control structure in Java, not only in Java, in many languages. For loop is very common. So coming to the for loop, this is one of the most oldest. The oldest means since from C onwards, we are using for loop syntax like this. So the for loop syntax is for the keyword we have to use for keyword. In the bracket consists of three portions. The bracket consists of three portions. The first portion is variable declaration and initialization. Variable declaration and initialization is the first portion in the for loop. From where the for loop iteration want to start from. So from 0 or 1 or 2 or 10, from where the iteration want to start from. And the second part of the for loop is a condition for termination. How many number of times? Suppose if loop starts from 1, the loop want to iterate when the value is 10 or 20 or 30. So the condition you write, as many number of times the termination condition satisfies, those many number of times loop will iterate. Once the termination condition is not satisfied, the loop will not automatically terminate. And one more is increment or decrement. Whatever variable we declare and initialize here and we use here in the termination condition, that value we want to increment or decrement. That increment or decrement portion comes under third part of the for loop. And a variable declaration and initialization, first portion of the for loop. Condition for termination, second part. And third part is increment or decrement. So close the floor basis. In this floor basis, we need to write for loop logic. So we can write n number of lines of code in this for loop. Let's see with a small example how definite for loop can be executed using finite for loop. Finite loop iterates specific number of times. For int I is equal to 0. I is an integer variable. I is equal to 0. I is less than 9. I is less than means 9 means I is less than 10. I is less than 10 means 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It is 10 times. But because the I value started from 0, if it go up to 9, altogether 10 values will be produced. If I is less than 10, I is less than 10 means 9, up to 9. So 0 to 9. Or otherwise, if you are interested, we want to iterate from 1 to 10. You write int I is equal to 1 and I is less than or equal to 10. So it all depends on how, from which integer variable we want to start the loop. So int I is equal to 0, I is less than 10, I plus plus. Initially I value is 0. The next time, and that time the I value will be used here, 0 will be used here. When the loop iterates second time, the I value will become 2, increments to 1. It's a post increment. So the value will become 1. So then the 1 will be printed. The next iteration 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up to, it will go on up to value 9. So this is finite for loop. Finite for loop means finite number of times the loop iterates. We only specified that how many number of times the loop want to be iterated. Coming to the indefinite loop. In the finite loop, we specified we want to iterate loop for 10 times. But coming to the indefinite loop, we don't know from somewhere, from some X system or from the X machine, we are getting one string array. Or we are getting one array list. Or we are getting some data from the database. Or we are getting some data from the XML or JSON or in some other form. When we are getting some data from the web server. We are getting data from some X machine. So the data is not produced by us. We are getting data from some outside in a form of array. So as much size the array is, those many number of times we want to iterate a loop and we want to print the data. So how to do that? So here I'm explaining indefinite loop example. This loop iterates as many elements exist in an array. So it depends on how many number of times the loop will iterate. It depends on the number of elements exist in the array. So here I declared one string array. String names. How to declare array? Array we must declare with array variable suffix with one square bracket. If any variable suffix with square bracket, that indicates the array variable is equal to. So array values we must always write in flower basis. Array values we must always write in flower basis. Some languages use square basis, some languages use flower basis. In the flower basis, multiple values must be written with comma separator here. ABC in double quotation, XYZ in double quotation, Surya in double quotation, like this. So here ABC, XYZ, Surya are initialized to string array variable. So this array size may contain 10 elements or 20 elements or even 100 elements or 1000 elements also, if the data comes from the remote system, from some other machine. And for the example sake, I am declaring array here. And there are two types of iterating a for loop. One is we should find out the length of the array. We should find out the length of the array. And from 0th index, as you already know how to access array indexes. Array indexes must be accessed from 0 to the length minus 1. Suppose if the array length is 10, we must access the array index from 0 to 9. 0 to 9. So the most traditional way of iterating over the array is we need to find out the length of the array. Names dot length. So that we should take into one length variable. The next iterate one for loop. Int I is equal to 0. I is less than len. I plus plus. Here you write that names array of, in the square bracket you give the index number I. So each index value will be returned. For loop will iterate as many number of elements exist in the array. This is the most traditional way. And finding the length of an array and starting from array index 0 to less than len I plus plus and accessing each element with array index of I. So this is the traditional way. And one more advanced way of iterating over arrays is using enhanced for loop or for each loop. This is the example on enhanced for loop or for each loop. In this example, what we are doing is string name is equal to string name colon names. String name colon names. Here the right hand side we have written array variable. Left hand side we have written single scalar variable. Scalar variable means single variable. String name colon names. So this is this enhanced for loop. This for each loop automatically find out the length of an array. Each element in this array will be automatically populated into name variable, and loop will automatically iterate based on the number of times the array sizes. The length will be determined here, number of times iterations will be determined here, each array index of value will be determined here. Everything will be determined in the syntax itself. String name colon names system dot. And this is one of the easiest way to iterate over arrays than compared with finding the length and accessing each element with that index number. Just a little bit, not tedious. That is the old way. This is the new way. The second indefinite loop is, here I took string array. So in Java, there is a package called java.util. This java.util package contains so many number of legacy classes and collection classes that we will discuss later, like list, set, map, vector, hash table, enumeration. Like this, there are so many predefined classes exist in the java.util package. This java.util package classes will act as a advanced. These classes will act as a advanced arrays. They are having so many number of predefined functions and they are heterogeneous, automatically groupable and shrinkable. So many convenient features are given in these classes. So instead of using primitive array and secondary array, like say for example string array or int array or long array, double array, we can use classes from this java.util package. In java.util package, there is one class exists named called ArrayList. How to create ArrayList class object? List is a base interface of ArrayList. From list interface, ArrayList class is derived. If you see the hierarchy, you will find out. ArrayList derives from list. List is an interface. ArrayList is a class. And in between abstract list class is there is an abstract class. So, okay, whatever it may be the hierarchy is. So, ArrayList is one of the subclass of list interface. So, we are writing list interface name, names is equal to new ArrayList. So, one ArrayList object is created here. That ArrayList object reference name is names. So, instead of storing the values at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 indexes in string array, the convenient method given in the ArrayList is add method. Names.add of ABC, names.add of XYZ, names.add of element, names.add of PQ. And in the ArrayList, we need not have to worry about accessing each array element with the 0th index number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on. If you keep on call array list object dot add of add, automatically objects will be added to the next index of the array list. So 4 elements are added. So the elements are from 0th index to 3. 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, fine. So how to retrieve data from this array list object? Because array list is having a string values. So here you write for string name colon names. From the names array list object, each string will be populated into name. That name we are printing here. Actually, there is a small change in the syntax here. When we are using array list object in enhanced for loop, we need to add small things like after list, we must put angular bracket and write string. And after this array list also we must put angular bracket and write string. And then we must apply generic here. We must apply generic here. Generic. The generic will tell to this collection object which type of data we are storing in this array list object. If you don't apply generic as a string, we cannot write this syntax. Then I have not written it over there. That is the example. So this is iterating over array. This is iterating data over array list object using enhanced for loop. And there is an example on infinite loop also. Developers are requested not to use infinite loops without having proper knowledge, because if you write infinite loops in the program may go to infinite loop, and sometimes the current process may hang, sometimes the system may hang, we may need to restart the system. So developers who are using infinite loops, they must use infinite loops carefully. And with a lot of programming expertise, you need to write infinite loops. Coming to the infinite loop iterates unlimited number of times. There is no limit like 5 or 10 or 15 or 20. Infinite number of times. Unlimited number of times. Infinite number of times. There is no limit. See, for example, here int I is equal to 0. We are not going to use I value here. Int I is equal to 0. For, what is the syntax of for? First, variable declaration and initialization. Second, condition for termination. Third, for increment and decrement, isn't it? But if you write for semicolon, if you write for semicolon, if you write for semicolon, and without writing any declaration and initialization, put semicolon. Don't write condition for termination, put semicolon. Don't write increment or decrement. So if you write for semicolon, close a parenthesis, a flower parenthesis, and flower basis, this will become infinite loop. So in this infinite loop, you increment I value as a post increment. So first I value will be used and then the value will be incremented. If you print this program, the I value will start from 0 and it will go up to infinite number of times. The loop will not terminate. Such loops can be terminated only by pressing Ctrl plus C. For explicit termination, sometimes if this system allows us, sometimes if system hang or it gets busy, even this Ctrl C also may not work. We need to press Ctrl or delete, go to task manager, kill the process from there. If it doesn't happen, restart the system. So that's why we must use infinite loops carefully. For semicolon is one of the way to write infinite loop. And while true is also another way of writing while true. While true means the loop will never end. The loop will continuously iterate while true. So while true, for semicolon, these two are the syntaxes of writing infinite for loops. So this is finite for loop. We specified how many times the loop want to be iterated. This is indefinite loop. We did not specify how many times the loop want to be iterated. The loop iteration will be determined based on the number of elements exist in the string array or array list object here. Coming to the infinite loop, the loop which never terminates is an infinite loop. So here for semicolon or while true can be used for indefinite loops. This is a simple example of simple finite loop. Simple class simple finite loop. Public static void means string racks. Int I is equal to 0, I is less than 10, I plus plus. So the loop starts from 0 and the value up to 9 will be printed, because 10 less than 10 is not valid, right? 9 less than 10 is valid. So up to 9 less than 10, 0 to 9 less than 10, and up to 10 values will be printed. Loop will automatically determine when the condition is not satisfied. That's why we call the second one as a condition for termination. And this is one of the oldest way of retrieving the elements from the array. So string names square bracket is equal to in flower basis A, B, C, X, Y, Z, Surya. 3 elements and 3 strings and 3 values I have added into string array. So what is the one of the oldest way to iterate over array is we need to write the array variable names dot we need to use length property. Array variable dot length property. Array variable name dot length property will find out the length of the array that will come into length variable. So here what we are doing for int I is equal to 0. Why most of the developers write for loop declaration as for int I is equal to 0? Why not int I is equal to 1? Why int I is equal to 0? Why developers write frequently? Because the most of the times they want to iterate over the arrays because array index starts from 0. We want to use that array variable starting with 0 as an index variable of array variable here. That is why we start from int I is equal to 0. That's why we start int I is equal to 0. Suppose if you don't want to iterate over array, you want to generally iterate one loop for 10 times. We can write 1 to less than or equal to 10. 1 to less than or equal to 10. And this I is equal to int I is equal to 0 or 1 will be determined based on for which purpose the I value want to be used in the for loop. If it want to be used as an index of the array, then we'll start from 0. Otherwise, we can start from 1. So, for int I is equal to 0, I is less than length, I is less than length. Length is 3. So, it will start from 0, 1 up to, it will go up to 2. 0th index value, index number 1 value, index number 2 value. That's what. So, int I is equal to 0, I is less than len, I plus plus. System outlet bundle names of I. 0, 1, 2 values will be retrieved and printed. So this is the old way of iterating over array. The new way of iterating over array is for each loop or enhanced for loop. And this for each loop or enhanced for loop, this syntax started from JDK 1.5 onwards from 2005, I believe. Yeah, from 2005. So string name colon names is a string array. So string name is a scalar variable. String name colon names. From the names array, string array, each value will be populated into name variable. Print it. So compared with the previous example, finding the length, iterating a loop, and accessing each array element with that index, this will take more, logic implementation time. Execution won't be much affected. Logic will be more here. Here logic will be less. Here length will be automatically determined, for loop will be automatically iterated, and each array element will be automatically accessed in the simple syntax. So most of the recent developers, they use for each loop for iterating or for loops. The next one is while loop. While loop. While loop. So we are having for loop and for each loop. For loop and for each loop. In the for loop, variable declaration, initialization, condition for termination, increment, decrement. In for each loop, the syntax is single variable for single variable colon array variable. That is the syntax of enhanced for loop. For single variable colon array variable. That is the syntax of enhanced for loop or for each loop. So two types of for loops. Coming to while loop. While loop and for loop, both will do the same job, but slightly, syntaxes are different. In while loops also, while loop and do while loop, two types of loops we are having. So in the for loop, what are all the three portions we used is, first one is variable declaration and initialization. Same one. The next condition. The next increment or decrement. Three portions, right? This for loop is constructed of three different portions: variable declaration, initialization, condition for termination, and increment or decrement. The same syntax of for loop here in while loop will be written in 3 different lines. Variable in declaration and initialization will do above the while loop. Condition for termination will write inside the while loop bracket. The increment or decrement we must do inside the while loop. Instead of horizontally writing for loop, we can write while loop in a vertical way. Variable declaration and initialization exist in one line, in one step. A condition will write it in while loop, and inside while loop we'll write the term increment or decrement. Coming to the while loop, variable declaration and initialization, condition for termination, logic, increment or decrement. This is while loop. Coming to the do while loop, variable declaration and initialization. Without checking for condition for termination, directly we must enter into loop first, into do, write whatever logic you want to write, and at the end you write increment or decrement statement. Close do, floor braces, then write while condition for termination. And the only difference between while loop and do while loop is, in the while loop, in order to enter the control into loop, the condition must be satisfied at least once in while loop. In case of while loop, to enter control into the loop, the condition need not be satisfied for the first iteration. So condition will be checked from the second iteration onwards. First iteration will happen without checking any condition. That is what do while loop is. So based on when we are doing the programming, we'll come to know when to use while loops and when to use do while loop. At least one time if the loop want to be iterated. Suppose for example I am calculating employee salaries. Now I want to calculate salary, student marks and percentages. At least if you go to shopping, you will go for a billing section. At least you will buy one item, one or many items. So the billing section people to print the printed bill. The loop want to be iterated one or many times. Pay slips one or many times. Student the mark calculation one or many times. At a minimum one student, one employee, minimum one item. Calculation should take place. After that, the condition should be checked. In such cases, we'll use do while loop. In the normal cases, we'll use while loop. So when to use while loop and when to use do while loop, that will be automatically, we'll acquire knowledge while doing the programming. So this is example on while loop, definite while loop. Int I is equal to 0, I is less than 10, system.out.println I plus plus. Int I is equal to 0. It's the same for loop. Int I is equal to 10, we wrote in same line. I is less than 10, 0. I is less than 10, that we have written here, inside a while bracket. This increment or decrement is also written in the same line in case of for loop. Here, we wrote it inside the while loop. In case of for loop, things happen in horizontally, and the logic written horizontally, the steps written horizontally. In while loop, the steps are written vertically. In case of do while loop also, int I is equal to 0, do. That without checking any condition, please enter into do loop, system.out.println print I value, I plus plus, while I is less than 10. And first you print the value and then check the condition here. In case of these both are different while loops. Here also loop will iterate for 10 times, here also loop will iterate for 10 times. This is definite while loop, this is definite do while loop. While loop, do while loop, definite loops. Same example. While do while loop example, public class while do while loop example, public static void main string docs. Int n is equal to 10. You write int n is equal to 10, or you take integer value from standard input or command line argument from racks of 0. And while running the program, you take command line argument. That command line argument will come to racks. From racks of 0, if you retrieve, this 10 will come. But command line arguments and standard input are always retrieved as a string. We must convert them into int using integer.parseInt or wrapper class method. So however, you take from standard input, or you take from the command line argument, or you directly assign a value, int n is equal to 10, int sum is equal to 0. That the intention of this program is, here we will assign some value to n. Every time we want to decrement one value from n, and each time the current value of n want to be added to sum. And the sum of 10 numbers want to be added. In sum is equal to 0. While n is greater than 0, n is greater than 0, and 10 is greater than 0, 9 is greater than 0, 8 is greater than 0, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is greater than 0. And then this loop will iterate from 10 to when n value becomes 1. And the 10 to 1 values, each value we are retrieving and we are adding it to sum. And every time the n value want to be decremented from 10 to 9, 9 to 8, 8 to 7, 7 to 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 like that. When n reaches to 0, 0 greater than 0, the condition fails. So the loop won't execute. The loop won't iterate. The loop will terminate. So each time we are taking n value and we are adding it to some variable. And initially 10 will be assigned. Next 10 plus 9, 19 will be added. To the 19, next time 19 plus 8, 27. 27 plus like that and so on. So on one way sum is incremented, and on the other way n value is decrementing. We are decreasing the n value. So n value initially is 10. Next time it is 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Don't forget to write this n decrement statement. If you don't write, always n value will remain 10 and the loop will go to infinite loop. And this simple while loop becomes an infinite loop if you don't increment or decrement this value, which is very dangerous. Instead of writing two lines, sum is equal to sum plus n and n minus minus, we can combinedly write these two lines in one line. How? Sum is equal to sum plus n minus minus. N minus minus means n minus minus means post decremented. First n value is used and after that n value will be decremented. And initially 10 will be used and then next value will be decremented. Next time 9 will be used and after that it will be decremented. So it is a post increment. Instead of writing like this, even we can write like this. Sum is equal to sum plus n can be written as sum plus equal to n minus minus. So one way we are doing addition assignment and this is post decrement. Both we combined into one line. So this is how while loop is. Print 1 to 10 value sum is so and so. Same thing I did with do while loop also. Int n1 is equal to 10, sum 1 is equal to 0, do sum 1 plus equal to n1 minus minus, n1 is greater than 0. So the loop will automatically iterate from 10 times and sum of 10 values will be printed finally here. This is how you compile the program and this is how you run the program. Break and continue. Break is a keyword and continue is also a keyword. Break iterates. Breaks the termination. Breaks the iteration of the loop. Break breaks the iteration of the loop. Continue skips the current iteration of the loop. Break terminates the loop. Break breaks the iteration of the loop, or break terminates the loop iteration. Continue skips the current iteration of the loop. We'll see with an example. Anywhere inside the loops, if you write break, from there the loop will automatically be terminated. Here you see one example. Break and continue example. Public class break and continue. Public static department. Int n is equal to 5. Int I is equal to 1. I is less than or equal to n into 5. Into 1 to 5 times the loop is iterating I plus plus. Okay. If n into 5 into 1, 50. 5 1 is 5. 5 2 is 10. 5 is 15. 5 4 is 20. Like that. 5 into 1, 5 is greater than 10? No. So simply that value will be printed here. So 1 into 5 is equal to 5 will be printed here. Next time the loop will iterate because this is a for loop. We are iterating from int I is equal to 1 to 5. 1 to 5 times and 5 times we are iterating the loop. So 1 into 5 is equal to 5 will be printed here. For loop iterates. So next time the n value is 5. 5 into the I value is 1 becomes 2. 5 into 2 is 5 2 is 10. 10 greater than 10? No. So 10 will be printed. 2 5 is 10 will be printed. This statement. And condition won't enter into, control won't enter into if condition. Only this value will be printed. So that's why 2 into 5, 1 to is equal to 5, 2 into 5 is equal to 10 will be printed. One more time loop iterates. This time the value is 3. If 3 into 5 into 3, 15 is greater than 10, 15 is greater than 10. Third iteration of that. 15 is greater than 10. Immediately system.out.println exiting from loop. 3 5s are 15. The value is printed here. And break. The moment break is returned, wherever the loop exists, whether it may be a for loop or while loop or do while loop, any kind of loop, once break statement executes, the complete loop will be terminated. The complete loop will be terminated. So the loop automatically terminates and only 2 values will be printed here. So that's how only 2 values are printed here. Here one more example. Int I is equal to 0. Well, plus I is less than 10. Plus I less than 10 and plus I is a pre-increment. Initially I value 0. Plus I means the value will first increment and then used. So the value 0 becomes 1. 1 less than 10. Yes. So if I divided by 2 is equal to 0, and if that value, if division by 2, if the remainder is 0, that means for even numbers. For even numbers, don't print anything. Else, for even numbers, don't print anything here. Else, if it is odd number, continue means that current iteration will be skipped. If odd value comes because of this continue, the loop will skip the iteration so that this statement will not be printed. If it is an even value, so nothing is here, else continue, then followed by I value will be printed. That is how only for the even numbers this value is printing. For the odd values, because of continue statement, the loop is skipping or. Right? Once wherever and continue is encountered, whatever logic you write inside the loop, that will be skipped and loop will iterate for one more time. That's why continue will continue will skips the current iteration of the loop. Breaks the iteration of the loop. So this is how the second topic in control structures, loops, for each loop, while loop, do while loop, finite loop, indefinite loop, infinite loop, and break and continue statements are completed. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.